When I saw the whole situation of Kevin Durant leaving the Oklahoma City Thunder for the Golden State Warriors back in 2016, I thought it was shocking, like historically shocking, but it gave me a weird sense of deja vu like I'd seen this before. Not that one, I'm talking way, way, way before. In fact, the details surrounding the Kevin Durant situation are practically the exact same as the corrupt bargain of 1824. Now, me saying that probably made it click in your head, but just for narrative's sake, let me lay out the connection. So, in the 2015-2016 NBA season, Kevin Durant and the Thunder were up 3-1 on the 73-9 Golden State Warriors in the Western Conference Finals, but then in a historic collapse that could never be expected to happen again, the Warriors were able to come back and win three straight to make it to the finals. The historic Warriors team couldn't be denied, and they soon went up 3-1 themselves in the NBA Finals against the Cavs led by LeBron. But then, in a historic collapse that could never be expected to happen ever again, Draymond fell for the rage bait, got suspended somehow, followed by a legacy series from LeBron and a shot from Kyrie that was so good that it got added to the list of like 20 shots that people call the shot. The Cavs somehow beat all the odds and won the chip, while somewhere on Twitter, Kevin Durant was still reeling from his heartbreaking choke just a few weeks earlier. Flashback now 200 years to 1824 in America. The War of 1812 was over. People were vibing, and for the first time in American history, state legislatures didn't directly elect the president, and instead, normal people got to vote with, only a few minor restrictions, like being a man, being white, having property, being 21 or older, being a U.S. citizen, and wearing diabolical fits like this. Like, what is that? He looks like he's straight out of Dr. Seuss. But now that some normal people could vote, it felt like the president was actually picked by the people and not just some shady backroom deals. Just like the Cavs won off pure basketball talent and not by any shady cap space changes or free agent shenanigans. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So the election of 1824 arrived, and there were four candidates up for election: Andrew Jackson, LeBron; John Quincy Adams, Steph Curry; Henry Clay, Kevin Durant; and William Crawford, but, he really isn't that important to the story, so he's like Kyle Lowry, I guess. So the election happens, and Andrew Jackson's in the lead with 99 electoral votes, but all the other candidates split the vote pretty evenly, and Adams got 84, Crawford got 41, and Clay got 37, which eliminated him from contention for the presidency, meaning he had no shame and nothing else to lose. Now back to the 2016 offseason. Curry was not happy that LeBron just ruined what could have been the perfect season. MVP, scoring title, best team record, a chip, and a finals MVP? My God, he could have had a season like Shea. Sorry, but Curry was deeply displeased, and you know who else happened to be in free agency and also displeased about choking a 3-1 lead? Kevin Durant. Another flashback. So now the election was finished, and since Jackson got the most electoral votes, it makes sense he'd be the president, right? Well, let's not be stupid here, okay? Like, seriously, think for a second. Did you actually think that Jackson would be awarded the presidency? Like, he didn't have enough of a margin of victory with only 15 electoral votes ahead of Adams. So you know that it needs to go to the House of Representatives to decide who is the real winner of the presidency, right? Well, guess who just so happened to be Speaker of the House? Henry Clay. Well, well, well. So now Adams lost in the finals fair and square, but he knew he couldn't beat Jackson by normal means, so he struck a little deal with Henry Clay on the side. If Henry Clay would convince the House of Representatives to elect Adams, well, a nice little cozy position as Secretary of State would be lined right up for him. And Henry Clay, well, he accepted what many call the weakest move by a politician in history. We're now back in 2016, and everyone already kind of knows what's going to happen. The Warriors with KD go on to sleepwalk their way to 2 titles, and LeBron is left sad and destitute, not being able to overcome the collaboration. Although he does win in like 2 years later with the Lakers, so. But he couldn't be beat by normal means. One superstar wasn't enough to take down the king, so 2 needed to band together to defeat him. Now, for the last time in 1824, John Quincy Adams is now elected president and has his new fancy Secretary of State, Henry Clay. It should be noted for the sake of this comparison that being a Secretary of State back in the day was almost kind of like being in Gonzaga prep. Like, you're practically next in line to walk into the presidency, or Gonzaga, I guess. So this kind of deal was almost trying to set up, well, a dynasty of sorts. And now Andrew Jackson supporters were diehard and very outspoken at the time, and they would constantly talk about how the presidency was stolen and it was a corrupt bargain between Adams and Clay that won the presidency and nothing else. Sounds like some fans I know nowadays. But Jackson himself was absolutely incensed and turned into a feral ghoul for the next 4 years as he fought tooth and nail at every turn, performing like an MVP politician to try and expose what he saw as a setup against him. So now that all the information's on the table, I can make the final connections like a murder mystery movie where the detective goes over all the clues and goes over all the scenes and kind of shows how everything links together. So Curry and Durant both lose out to LeBron in the finals, just like how Clay and Adams lost to Jackson. They then turned to each other to make a deal that was viewed as unfair and weak at the time in order to beat their opposition, and they finally reached the heights of the presidential office with all the glory it brings, just like an NBA championship. Clay's reputation was hurt much like Kevin Durant's, as people viewed him as the symbol of rigging the system for a cheap win. He also never got to be the guy, as he never was able to win the presidency again. Now, the person who was defeated, LeBron and Jackson, they fought back as hard as they could, but it ended up being futile. But finally, they were able to get some glory on the back end. LeBron, he got his Disney World gift shop ring, and Jackson beat the brakes off of Adams in the rematch election and was finally able to get what he thought he was owed from the start. See how history repeats itself, guys? It's so beautiful. Now, one final note as well. I am not saying that Andrew Jackson is the LeBron of presidents, because Jackson is really not a super great guy, and he did some pretty unsavory things to the Native Americans, and I think LeBron has left them alone for the most part. So LeBron was also not really a sore loser. He kind of accepted the challenge and said it was good for the league's competition, whereas Jackson kind of just wanted to duel and kill everybody that wronged him. So they're really only similar in situation only. But of course, thank you guys for watching, and if you thought this was funny or, God forbid, even educational, then don't forget to sub for a homie, and don't forget Trey Johnson MVP, and don't forget to whiz. See ya.